What's going on, adventurers and story lovers? Welcome to Point Noir, home of the Point Noir podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jerry the Third, aka Kimono Jack. We're here for session 17 of the Point Noir podcast. So glad you're here to join us. We have another amazing guest to share and present to you guys today. But real quick, just wanted to ask a few questions, throw something out there. Do you have friends? Do you have people in your immediate circle of influence that you would like to like you more? Well, here's a great solution. Just share an episode, a session of this podcast. You have a lot of ammo to choose from. Sessions 1 through 17. They're all crushing. And if you really want to listen to me more, you can listen to session 0. But really, you can't go wrong. Either they're going to love you forever once you hit that share button, just, throw it in a text, shoot it to them on Facebook, or you'll realize that this person you just shared this amazing show with has terrible taste and you should stop associating with them. So, you'll win either way. Either you just grab a lot of social value and capital, or now you realize, hey, I don't need to spend so much time around Stephanie anymore. Or, you know what? Bernard really isn't my vibe. There you go. I'm here to help you out. That's just one strategy. Use this show to either attract or divide your immediate social circle. That's my advice, my best 2 cents. Anyway, make sure you guys share this show with anybody you think that might be interested. We'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. Joining us today at The Point is Darnell Lamont Walker. You can find him on Instagram at cleverbastard, which I'll have to say is one of my favorite Instagram tags or handles ever. So make sure you check him out on Insta. He's always posting up pics. He is an entrepreneur, a filmmaker, a writer, a philosopher, an adventurer for sure. And I'm so glad he was able to spend time on the show and share his experience with us. He's the founder of a travel company called Passport Required, which has done over 30 trips in the past 3 years and still has more coming up for the rest of this year too, I think. So he's got an incredible amount of experience, a deep love for travel, and we talk about how travel has influenced his professional life, his writing, his directing, his filmmaking ideas, and so much more. So I think you guys are really going to dig this one. I had a ton of fun doing it, as I always do. So without further delay, let's jump into today's session. Hey, what's going on, Darnell? Welcome to Point Noir. How you feeling, fam?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm feeling really good out here. It's cold, though. The fall has set in.
Oh, that's where that New York fall.
Oh, my God, yeah. And I just left LA a couple of days. I was just in New York like a week ago, and it was hot. Went to LA for a couple of days and came back, and now I'm cold.
Hey, man, that East Coast fall don't play, bro.
Oh, it's stupid. It's dumb. I'm out here with a sweatshirt on. My hoodie smells like food from the weekend. And it's all I got. So
that's real, though. That's real. I'm glad we could finally get a minute to talk, because we've been trying to do this for a bit.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, the show's only been, y'all listen, the show's only been on for like 3 months, but like pretty much since the beginning, been trying to get this man on the phone. Let's just start it off the way we do. Tell us a little bit about you, where you coming from, how you got into travel. I know you got a ton of stuff to share, so let's get it popping.
Yeah, so born and raised in Charlottesville, Virginia. Most people don't even, I guess now most people know what Charlottesville is because of the dudes who came through last year with the tiki torches.
The tiki torches.
Yeah. So that's my home raised. And I've been traveling since I was a kid, man. My mom used to just put me on the plane, but like domestic travel.
Okay.
And so it started off early, just wanting to see more and more and more. And now as an adult, I just kept that going. I've always been curious about the world and thinking that everyone was good and trusting the world and everyone in it, and figured travel was the best way to explore that. And so I just made it happen, I've been to most of the world. I don't want to say most of the world. I've seen a lot of the world now, and eaten with a lot of folks, laughed with a lot of people, and just trying to keep that going at this point.
Right, 100%. So I'm curious, as someone who consistently travels internationally, and you even bring others with you along, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do.
I wanted to know if we could talk a little bit about the values and maybe some of the insight you got doing domestic travel being young, because we have a lot of dudes traveling internationally, but I think traveling domestically is really important too, don't you?
I do. And, it's sad. It's not sad. I want to say sad, but I hate when, a lot of people don't put a lot of value into seeing what's like just over the hill in their own town. Like I know people who are born and raised in Charlottesville with me, and I go home and I have a great time when I go. I know where to go and catch the sunset in the mountains, and I know where to go and do this. And I go to Detroit and Chicago and St. Louis and LA and Wyoming and all these other places. And there are people who are like, no, but you gotta go internationally. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but you should also know where you live, and you should know your own place and your own land.
Right.
And so many people don't. Like, they have no interest in it because someone put more value into other places. Like, there are many times when I think America, the American government is trash, but the country, the country itself,
casually,
right, casually. But the country itself is beautiful. I've driven across country 7 times so far.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing place to see. Driving through Colorado at night is beautiful. Like one of the most amazing skies I've ever seen is in Joshua Tree in California in the desert.
Yeah.
I can't get. It's a few places around the world you can go to also see that, but it's probably one of the most impressive things I've ever seen anywhere in the world was in Joshua Tree. And so, but there are people who will never know that because they think that traveling abroad makes them special.
Oh, right. And no passport required. Oh, see that? We got jokes. No passport required.
And what's crazy is that's a show now on PBS. It's a show on PBS called No Passport Required.
What?
And what's funny about it is that when people tag my company, because of course I'm passport required, so people tag me thinking and talking about them. They're like, hey, I'm watching this show called No Passport Required, but they'll tag me, and it's like, oh, it's so amazing, and I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh, thank you for the tag. Yeah, thanks for the free promotions and marketing. Yay.
Right. That's wild. And yeah, we'll definitely get to that towards the end of the show because you got a couple of travel-related ventures and companies. But yeah, there's a lot to see in the States, and I mean, frankly, I haven't been to California yet. I've been around a lot of places in the mountains and deserts and stuff, but not California. I'm just like, man, I've been traveling everywhere but. So that's on my list. Just like get it done,
Yeah, man, you got to get out there. Like California is one of the most beautiful states in the U.S. There are a few between California and New York that are amazing. Like Middle America is kind of strange, but and not to throw any dirt on the Midwest at all, because I definitely enjoy coming through the Midwest and hanging out. But California is amazing. I spend most of my time, I think, in L.A. and riding up the coast, going to Malibu, hiking the mountains, and all that.
Yeah, and I can't talk too much trash about the Midwest because I stayed in St. Louis for 9 months, so now I got a little bit of roots over there. And I know some people listening to the show. I'm just saying, there's other places, and Emo's Pizza is trash. I will say that.
Oh, damn! you put names out there.
Yeah, that's like that's like their state dish, garbage pizza.
Wow.
At me. Yeah, so but you kind of have this I don't really know how to put it. Like, I'm into the bohemian lifestyle a little bit, but you just have it like really this international eclectic and rich feel about you. And it kind of tells. You said you travel across country by car 7 times. Like, who does that?
Oh yeah, man. Like
it's not the 80s. You don't have to do that.
And it's funny because I have hitchhiked. I've picked up hitchhikers who've gone with me, and it's been an amazing time. People are always like, yo, what? Are you crazy? Are you losing your mind? And I'm like, man, it's amazing. Like, you never know. Like, I just believe that most people in the world are good, right?
Yeah.
And if you believe that, and I've never run into a reason traveling anyway to not believe that.
Right.
Everyone, because I think travelers have a certain spirit about them, and I think I have a great sense of discernment, and so it always works in my favor. And it's just the life. Like, I think everything I own fits into my backpack, or at least into a small carry-on.
Right.
And I can just pick up and go at any time. Like, I've been living in South Africa for the last couple of years, and coming back from there. Like, I came back with a backpack, and my friends are like, where are your clothes? I'm like, these are my clothes. They're like, where's your stuff? I was like, oh, I gave it all away. Like, this is it. What else do you need,
Yeah.
But it's like this traveling life that you just grow accustomed to. But I also have a regular life. Like I'm a writer. I do regular stuff. I eat out, whatever. But it's still like this thing that traveling has introduced me to, and meeting other people in the world that's kind of opened me up to so much more.
Right, yeah. Regular stuff like brushing your teeth, drinking water, and eating vegetables. I got you. That's regular.
Exactly.
That's pretty regular.
Right.
I love it, man. So let's dive in because, man, I know there's a plethora of stories, and it just seems like it really is a theme that you've just been moving and exploring and experiencing your whole life. Let's talk about South Africa a bit because that's when I first heard about you from my homies out in St. Louis. Shout out to STL. Like I said, I can't really talk about them, but your pizza is trash.
It's trash.
So how'd you?
Chinese food, but go for it.
They have problematic Chinese restaurants.
Oh yes, I've been. Oh yes.
This is going to be a thing. Let's talk about South Africa. The move for South Africa. What kind of spurred that? What were you doing? What did you experience? Was your first trip to Africa?
It wasn't my first trip to Africa, but what happened was I went over for a film festival, and I don't know if I said it already, but anyway, I'm a filmmaker, and I created a documentary that got me into a festival in South Africa. So I get over there and had never gone. I've only heard stories about South Africa, and so what's dangerous about hearing stories of other countries is, especially Africa, is that people always give you the worst. Like, I mean, it's bad. Like, oh, you're going to go over there, you're going to get robbed. It's scary. It's a dark place, man. I got over there, and it was probably one of the greatest places I'd ever been.
Right.
Absolutely loves Johannesburg.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I was there for 3 hours, like 3 hours in, and I just looked around, and I was like, you know what? I live here now. This is home.
You pulled a reverse colonization.
Yeah, man, I was like, this is home, and I did the festival. I was there for a week and a half. Did the festival, came back to the States, had an airline ticket because the airline messed up on my seat, and so I had a free ticket. And I called the airline one day and said, hey, I need to leave tomorrow, and hopped on the flight, went over, found a place, and just made it work. You know, just created a whole life over there, and it was amazing. I did 2 years, and I mean, I have nothing bad to say about it. I met some of the most amazing people in my life that are still in my life. Some of the, I think it's one of the greatest places for Black folks to go, especially.
Yeah. 100%, man. Josie, I've been to Josie for 2 weeks, and it's just similar to you. I showed up the first night. I was out in Greenside. You know Greenside?
Yep.
You're staying right there, man, and just the richness of conversation. South Africa is intensely international. Like when people think international, you might think somewhere like Toronto or England or Paris, where you can kind of see the different shades and stuff. You know, you'd be like, oh, they're darker, they're lighter, you know, shorter, taller. But in Africa, they got 10 national languages. 12. Thank you.
Yeah. It's 12 official languages there, and yeah, it's dope. And just the like you said, the intensity of the conversations, and like it's sort of like being in the U.S. and watching and right out of Jim Crow and seeing how Black folks are rebuilding, except they're so much further ahead than we were. Right out of oppression. So many are still being oppressed there, so that's not over. But in Johannesburg, there's a wokeness there that's and like this vibrancy, and people are like, yeah, we're taking over, and the young kids are like, yeah, things are changing really quick, so you're either gonna get with it or you're not. You know, they got a new president over there now who's shaking some things up and saying the right things. When I got there is when the Fees Must Fall movement started going down, so kids were like protesting
for higher education.
In the middle. Yeah. So it was like the week I got there, they set the bus on fire. They wrote a letter to the president of the college kids, wrote a letter to their college president and said, we need you to volunteer a white student so we can kill him because we have a point we need to make. And so I'm in Johannesburg like, yo, it's about to go down.
Right.
I was like, these are my people.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so, it was absolutely intense, and that's what I love about it. Cape Town is very problematic for so many reasons, but it'll get there. And but yeah, South Africa, amazing, man, and I can't wait to get back over there.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm thinking about popping over there for New Year's Eve for Afropunk. What you doing?
Okay, cool.
You free? What's up?
Nope. New Year's, I'm not. I actually missed it last year too, because I always have a New Year's trip with my company.
Oh, word.
Yeah, so New Year's is not a good time for me.
Well, let's talk about it now, because maybe I'm doing that. Tell us about your company, the name, the purpose, how it got started. You guys just celebrated 3 years, right?
Just celebrated our 3-year anniversary. Yeah, so passport required is the name. Like I've always been traveling, and I'm cheap. Like I'm very cheap. I hate spending money. And I just come back from Europe. I went to about 5 countries, and I think the whole trip cost me about $400.
Ooh. And was you doing dishes the whole way, or what? Like, what happened?
Right. That was like couch surfing.
Okay.
Hopping in cars, like hitchhiking, calling friends, like, hey, what's up? Can I stay at your spot? Like all this stuff, man. And so I got back, and a friend of mine was like, hey, man, maybe you should take people with you and show them how you do it. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. And so what I did, I created this company. We take people on secret trips around the world, so they have no idea where they're going to go until just a few days before they get there. Mm-hmm. And no trip costs more than we just upped the price this coming year. I'm actually sending out an email in about as soon as I hang up the phone with you, actually. But we just upped the price to $1,025. That includes round trip ticket and lodging for the week that you're away.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, and in the last 3 years, we've gone to 31 countries. 31 countries. We've had 95 people who loved it, except one who she wrote a bad review a couple weeks ago.
And I saw an appropriate response on your Facebook for that.
Oh, very much so, and I enjoy sharing that response.
That was hilarious.
People are still calling me like, yo, I need to go on the trip. That response was everything. So she's actually got me more she's got me more business, and so it's great. And but yeah, so that's what we're doing. Next year is going to be pretty, like, even more dope. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out.
So let's rewind, because I want people to really understand this outside of the review thing, because that's some biz dev stuff, or some strategy stuff. But you have successfully done over 31 trips in 3 years, so averaging 10 trips a year.
Yeah, we do 10 trips a year, and they're all passport required, of course, as the name suggests, and we just go. I've had 95 people, if I've been counting correctly, 95 people in the past 3 years, which is great because I keep the trip small. Like I refuse to take a lot of people because
it's harder to move. It's harder to move.
And it's not even that. It's more so the personalities. And once you have too many people, like it just becomes too much. You want it to still feel like this certain. You still want it to be this very genuine thing.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like the people that I have on these trips, they all blend perfectly. They're all strangers to each other, And so they get there and they're like, oh my God, and they become friends for life. Like I would say 80% of the people who've gone on the trips have come on a second trip, because
of like kindred spirit sort of deal.
Right. And then a lot of them go on trips. They become friends with the people they're on trips with, and they travel together,
Wow.
Outside of my company, which is great. And so that's what we wanted to do. And most of these people, I would say even like 75% of the people who come on our trips, this is their first time ever leaving the country. So they get a passport to go on the trip. And they say, this has been the most amazing experience I've ever done. Like we were in GQ not long ago because one of the traveler who came on the trip, she wrote for GQ, and she's like, this is one of the greatest trips I've ever been on. I need to write about this. The people need to know that this is happening.
Right.
And so it's been pretty dope.
Wow, man, that's something, because the Black travel movement has really been kicking up over the past few years, and there's some people who struggle to put together one trip, much less 30 trips.
Exactly. And that's our thing. Like it's I started it because I wanted to get black folks out of the country and get more black people moving. But like I
Did you
started
consider a boat? Kidding. I'm kidding.
right. Look, like, well, it's not a bad idea. And just so it's like it's just real dope, man. It's like and we were around right before the whole black travel movement kicked up.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we just want to travel. Like it wasn't even about all that. And then that kicked up. And so I tried to stay away because I feel like that whole thing is sort of like it's gonna come and go. Like it just looks
It's
cool.
a wave. It's a wave.
It's a wave, and it's like, oh, people are doing it. Like most of the black travelers I see are doing it for Instagram and stunting reasons. And it's like, no, like they come back, they don't have stories to tell. They don't. I'm like, what did you do? Oh, I got all these pictures on Instagram. Like, what else did you do? Who'd you meet? Who'd you talk to? Where'd you go? And it's like, oh, you spent $2,500 and you went to DR and took a picture on an ocean. That's cool. That's fun, And it's like,
oh man, he said $2,500 to go to the Dominican Republic. Oh, the stank face is on right now. Damn.
People are doing it, man. People are doing it. They're spending like $3,000 to go to Jamaica or Cuba or Bahamas, and it's like, are you kidding me?
I'm not going down there with $3,000 and not walking away with a plot of land.
Listen, I got a house. I got
5 goats.
and 5 goats. That's it. Like it's deep, man. It's deep. But we're working on it.
I mean, I was talking to a recent guest. I'm not sure what order we're going to do these all in, but we were talking about like kind of the different, I guess, mindsets about traveling. I think there are tourists, there are travelers, and there are adventurers. And, as long as you're getting out the country and doing this, I think there is a kind of an independence and a coolness about traveling as a Black American, young Black American, because a lot of us don't get out. Like, a lot of Americans don't have passports. About 75%, 70, something like that, of Americans don't even have the right to leave the country by plane. So I'd support Black people going out. I think once you kind of get that out your system, hopefully there's so much more to be discovered. And I hope people eventually do realize that.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. Like just show people, like there's so many people who think, I was just talking to my cousin a couple weeks ago and he's like, yeah, I'm going on a trip for my birthday. I'm like, how much are you guys spending? Where are you going? He's like, oh, we're thinking about going to the DR or to Panama or Jamaica. We're looking at a budget of like $2,000 a piece. And I'm like, wait, what? No. But there are a group of travelers who don't know that you can travel for much cheaper and have way more fun.
Right.
The people who spend $2,000 have much less fun than we have on our $900 trips.
Right, and the expectations, like, oh, I paid this money, I need this level of service. How come everybody's slow on the island? Like, why is, I mean?
Right.
That can mess up your whole vibe.
Exactly. And that's another thing. Like, I won't take people who like negative energy. We leave those people. I've left people on trips.
Yeah.
There are people who can no longer fly with us. So we don't have any of that. So it's been pretty dope so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're building great community. I can only imagine. I mean, from my short experience with this show, the people who've been willing, like yourself, to be a part of this and the conversations we have, it's like, yo, this is tribe right here, But I can only imagine how amplified that experience is going around the world 30 times in 3 years, bro. That is intense. Like that could be a job, but then you still work other jobs.
Right on.
That's what's up.
I'm trying to. Yeah, like last year. Actually, this year was the first year I didn't go on all the trips. I hired someone to go for me just because I think by September of last year, I was so tired and just so worn out from traveling like every month, It's like, because the months I wasn't traveling with the company, I was traveling on my own, doing solo trips. And I was just like, man, this is a good life, but I really need a break.
Right. And, got to recharge your own batteries. And then all the work you do, I think actually, we'll do that. I'm curious to see how all the travel and all your experience has gone into your work, because the intensity of that travel schedule that you just mentioned, 30 trips in 3 years, I see just bits of what you're out here talking about, the sort of projects you're visualizing, and they're intense, bro.
Yeah, man.
You have some real deep, meaningful work. How are those two kind of related to you? Do you feel like your travels and your broader world experience has influenced or empowered your voice to tell these sort of stories? And you can talk about what you got going on too.
Yeah. I think like for me, as a filmmaker,
Mm-hmm.
before I was a filmmaker, like I've always been in the entertainment industry, but as many other things, and me being a filmmaker came about because I was traveling. And my first film that I created was called Seeking Asylum.
Mm.
And what happened was Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore. And it just so happened that I had a trip a few days after that going to backpack through Europe. And my first stop was in Norway. And so a friend, he's like, oh, and I tell a friend, I was like, yeah, I leave for Norway in a couple of days. He's like, oh shit, what are you going to Norway for? To seek asylum? And I'm like, huh, that's
Wow.
actually not a bad idea. So I grabbed my camera, head over to Norway, and then Amsterdam, London, Paris. Um, and I just asked the people on the street, like, hey, if black folks were so afraid, because we're so afraid for our lives in the U.S., um, would you all accept us if we moved here with open arms? How would you take us? And just got people's responses to that. And I came back home and I just had hours and hours of footage.
Wow.
And a friend says, hey, maybe you should take this footage and put it together. Find an editor. I didn't know how to. I knew how to edit, but not that great. I didn't know how to compose. I didn't know how to do many things with filmmaking on the production side. And so
Mm-hmm.
I taught myself. I had a friend, Tyreek, who came through and showed me in a day, like, okay, this is how you cut. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. And then the rest of the time, I just taught myself everything else and just put the footage together and sent it out to a few festivals, and it was accepted into a lot of festivals. I got a lot of write-ups about it in different media, different magazines and things. And someone said, "Oh, you're a filmmaker." I said, "Okay, I guess so." Um, and so it was all by accident because of the traveling. And
Yeah.
then from there, it became about how Black people in the world deal with mental health. Because one, we're talking in the first one, we're talking about being afraid for our lives that affects our mental health. So I got into this is something we need to talk about. So I got into that, made that film about mental health. Was my second film. And then while making that film, a lot of folks who were dealing with mental health illnesses and issues, they were triggered by sexual abuse, rape, and such. And so I said, damn, that's something else we need to talk about. And one day I'll make a happy movie, but right now I don't think I can. And so now we're in post production on a film about sexual abuse and rape around the world. So I traveled to many countries around the world and asked the people there, like, hey, would you like to? Could we talk about what's happening here as far as rape goes and sexual abuse? And so it's been pretty heavy, and travel played a role in all of those things. And it's taken me far, and it's been great. And it's funny because the travel has brought me to all this heavy stuff, but it's also a form of self-care. So when I need to really just step away from all of that, I travel. I go out into the world and make it happen.
Bro, I can only imagine just the weight of kind of being, you're asking people to share their stories, but you're kind of like that conduit. You're bringing it
Mm-hmm.
through. You have to be in the editing room, looking at all that footage, reading the words, putting everything down. Like that's a lot,
Yeah.
bro. But every time I see you on Facebook, and by the way, Darnell's got two Facebook accounts because you are you, which I really appreciate. You,
Yeah.
you put it like it's hilarious and
Oh
like
God.
hella on point at all times. Y'all got to check him out on Facebook too. But I mean, it's that's a lot, bro.
It's heavy, man. Like I actually hired someone to edit this next film because I said I just can't do it. And the only reason I edited the second one, the mental health one, because that was so heavy too, was because I got food poisoning when I was in, just a couple of months after moving to South Africa,
Yeah,
and I couldn't leave the house. So I was like, well, while I'm in the house, I might as well sit here and edit, and that's what I did. But had I not gotten food poisoning, that film probably still would not be out.
yeah, bro. That's wow. That's got to take a toll at some point. So I'm glad there's travel. You're not jaded from the travel experience. Depending on how you.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the possibilities of travel, just to create new insight, to create space. Physically and emotionally. Like that's another documentary right there.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, see, they just keep coming. Yeah,
Wow, man, but that's a really powerful way for travel to be tied into, and I definitely understand. You know, the raised eyebrow. I'm sure for you, you kind of expect this stuff. You understand how the world works. You accept it. But the difference
For sure.
between traveling to pull out a purpose like that versus an Instagram post or turning up for cheap.
Exactly.
This is a different perspective, a different experience.
Exactly.
Wow. So how do you feel about travel and a lot of the people that have been able to take their first trips with this kind of like almost like Taken sort of motif, like get on the plane.
You said how do I how do I feel
Well,
about what exactly?
oh, I was asking, how do you feel about these people who've taken their first trips and kind of maybe any transformations they've experienced? Have you seen travel be therapeutic for Black Americans who've never been out of the country?
Oh yeah, man. Like it's amazing to witness like these wow moments in people's lives. And it's sort of like you hear so much about the world from family, and especially if you're black. You hear don't go out there. You're gonna get kidnapped. You're gonna end up in a ditch. You're gonna die.
Right. By the
Um,
way, not a lot of people kidnap Black people.
Not at all. There's no value
not
in
not a good
kidnapping.
not a high ranking poker chip there.
It is not right. Liam Neeson is not coming for us. The government is not going to negotiate.
Well, hell, Black kids be out
Um,
here saving themselves. They'd be like, "Where are we
right.
going?"
Exactly. Listen, it does not happen. But it's sort of like you get out there and you find out that everything you thought about the world doesn't exist, but it's in such a good way though. It's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, I thought I was going to come here and it was going to fall apart, and so you get there and then you realize that hey, it's actually pretty dope. Let me try to go here then. And so a lot of people who come on the trips with us for the first time, their first time traveling out, their second trip is usually a solo trip. And then, like I remember one traveler, she came and had never left the country, was always, and I don't let people pack more than a backpack for our trip. So that was her biggest issue. Her biggest issue
Damn.
was like, I don't know how I'm going to fit this stuff in a backpack. And she cried about it, like literally cried about it. Struggle, stress hit me up almost every day. It was like, can I please bring something bigger than this? And I was like, no, you can't. She came on the trip. She may have worn like, she bought so many outfits in a little bag. She might have worn like 3 of the outfits, um, and got there and realized I don't need my alarm clock. This is actually pretty great. And once she got back home, she booked 5 more trips by herself. Like within the next month, within the next couple of months after that, she's like, "Oh my God, you just opened my eyes to this world that I didn't know existed." And
Wow.
so it's sort of like so it's very therapeutic for a lot of people. It's very much self-care for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree 100%. My trip out to Paris, because again, as y'all know, I don't know my guests. We just sit here and just kick the shit, but I took a one-way trip out to Paris, France, had enough cash for 3 months, stayed out there for 18. Like, that changed my whole perspective coming back to the States with the attacks and everything going on in France with the, attacks in the States. It literally changed my life.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and that's how it needs. That's what it's supposed to do. Travel is supposed to do that. And we got to stop telling people not to do it. Like so many of us tell people, don't. Maybe you don't want to go there. Uh, it's dangerous over there. You heard about the train attack, or you heard about they blew a car up on the bridge, and it's like well, we live in probably one of the most dangerous countries on earth.
For real.
And so if we can make it in the U.S., especially being black, we can definitely make it in wherever the hell we go.
Right. Right. And, sometimes, no matter how many times you say it, people really got to go out there and experience it for themselves. You can walk safely through the streets of Europe at night. Ain't no, like, knives are an issue in London. Like, that's what,
Exactly.
and like, people fear
And right.
knives the way we fear Uzis.
Exactly. And that's the crazy part. Like, when I go to London, I even have that conversation with the people in London and even other countries where guns aren't allowed. It's like, oh my God, what's it like? I bet you're scared living in America, all those guns. America's so much more dangerous than here. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to worry about somebody running up on you and stabbing you in the throat. I was like,
Yeah.
it's like every day, like literally every day you read a newspaper in London. It's like there was a stabbing on the east side, on the east end. In
Yeah.
Brixton, someone was stabbed 17 times. I'm like, that's cold-blooded. I was like, people who shoot people are usually cowards.
Right.
People who stab people
Are committed.
You got to get up on. So you are an absolute psychopath.
Right. Right. So it's a much more engaging experience. It's a lot of commitment.
It's a lot of commitment in that, and so it's crazy. But still, America's probably way more dangerous than London, of course. But damn, yeah, it's crazy.
We're laughing not because we're insensitive, but because there's a very dry, dark humor to it all.
It is.
And that keeps me going too when I'm traveling. I'm just like, oh, this is wild. Yeah, man, dude, thanks for sharing all that. Like, I think that's a lot of good perspective, and you have a ton of experience. So, what's one thing that you have found in common with almost everybody as you've traveled the world, cultivated these stories? What are the things that we're all in this together on, that we share, no matter the culture, the ethnicity, the region? What are some things like that you've picked up on?
I think one thing we share is like we all just really want to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like the smallest things make us happy, and I love going to countries and sharing meals with people because it just makes me happy to see people eat, but also to eat with people, and that's when people start opening up and sharing their own stories, and they talk a lot when they eat. And so whenever I love staying in hostels, it's a thing, and so because I get to explore countries with people who I've never met who are also there probably alone. And I just say, hey, everyone, let's go grab a table and just eat. And you sit around this table and you all go around, and by the end of the meal, you're like best friends. It's like, oh man, if you're ever in Manchester, come see me. If you're ever in Amsterdam or South Africa or Ethiopia, come see me. You got to stay in my house because it's just happiness,
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like whatever I can do to make someone else happy, and they go out of their way to make me happy, and it's like instant friendship.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact that you're both kind of in this new world together, and finding
Exactly.
something that you can kind of got your back a little bit, you know what I'm saying, or at least have a decent experience with, especially over food. That's got to be super powerful.
Exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. Well, on a similar tip, and this isn't to go super deep into your life, but I feel like you're comfortable sharing this stuff and you have good perspective. What has travel shown you about yourself? Out of all the travel you do and the ways you do it, what have you learned most? What have you been able to get the most insight on about you? Because there's a reason why you keep doing it.
Yeah. I think about me, I think it's shown me that exactly how resourceful I am, and how curious I am about the world. Like I don't think there's an end to my curiosity. I just want to see and do as much as possible and push my envelopes. I've found that I have, that I can actually be just. I found like that I haven't found my limit yet of how far I'll go or what can actually happen to me in the world that would that would kill me. Basically, like I'm just trying to see how, like I've been left at a border by a bus for 8 hours and with no idea what to do, in the cold with no coat, and my clothes and belongings are still on the bus. I've been almost locked up. Like it's just a bunch of things, and it's still like, man, but I'm not dead. I didn't die, and it's cool, and I'm gonna go back out here and do it again. So I haven't. I'm just happy to see how far I'm able to go and what I'm able to do while I'm there.
Right. 100%. I'm sure you're picking up new skills and techniques and tactics along the way. I mean, that's one of the things I love about being anywhere. I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out.
Yeah. It's I mean, and it's amazing, and just being able to run into people who can help and just say, hey, and knowing that I can do this by myself. Like I have done a lot of solo traveling, and most of the time when these things happen, I'm alone, and it's like, if I was with a friend, this would be so much easier,
Right.
and I would have had it figured out. But it's good that I'm alone because now I'm just like, wow. It adds to the stories I can tell years from now, if I ever write a book. And then two, it's like if I ever find myself in a situation again, I know exactly how to handle it. Or if someone else finds themselves in a situation again, I know how to handle it. Like and even while I'm, in the U.S., I run into travelers all the time, especially in New York and L.A. And it's like I go out of my way to make sure that they're good. Like I walk down the street and they're like, "Hey, excuse me, do you know where this place is? I'm not from here. I'm lost." Um, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, here. Actually, I'll walk with you. I'll go down there with you." Or this isn't your stop on the train. Just go 5 more stops. Matter of fact, I'll just go down with you and show you how to get there. Because I know how that is.
Yeah, man, really, that's some high level stuff. It's resourcefulness, but ultimately you've built such a high level of self-esteem and self-worth being able to rely on yourself that not only do you keep testing it and pushing the waters and seeing you're extremely capable, but you're able to lead these trips around the world and have others rely on your strength to get them through a similar experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, bro, that's dope. And I thank you so much for sharing that, because it's one thing if I say it, it's a whole different thing if you say it. I get the same sort of kick, the same sort of that's how I get my jollies. Like, leave me out here with nothing and I'm going to build something. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's it. Like my dream, I want to be left in the woods somewhere and just build a treehouse by accident and just say, "Oh, you know what? I live here now." That's the goal.
This is now the living room. That's what's up, man. That's super dope. So let's talk about you know what? Before we talk about the other projects you got going on, because you just got a really cool sort of career shift, right? With the
yeah.
We'll save that for a second. But if
Okay.
you had one piece of advice for somebody to get out there and travel, you have a lot of first-time travelers on your trip. What has been the piece of advice you share with the most number of people to get them to take that first step and either get their passport or book that flight overseas?
I tell them that they don't at the end of their life, they don't want to be laying there if they are granted the good fortune of having a deathbed, where they can just say goodbye and all this stuff. They don't want one of their regrets to be, "I wish I would have lived the way that I wanted to live and done the things I wanted to do." No one ever says, "I wish I had watched more television," or I wish I'd been on the internet just a little bit longer," or "I wish I went to one more on the run tour," or anything. It's like, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have lived the life I wanted to live without fear. We don't regret the things we do, just the things we don't do. And so you don't want to turn. I tell my friends all the time who are like my age and younger, I'm like, listen, it's a blink between diapers and Depends, right? And so you don't want to one day look up and you're 50 and 60 and 70 and say, "Damn, I wish I would have done this." I have friends all the time who tell me, one second.
You're good.
I'm good. Who tell me, I wish I was young enough to go on your trips. If this was 10 years ago, I would have done. Like, but you're only 45.
Like, right, you're gonna live till 90. What are you talking about?
I had a woman last year come on my trip. She was 65.
Hey.
I had a woman come on the trip recently who was 55. I had a woman come on this trip this year who was 67, and had a great time.
Getting it.
Right, and it's like, why do you think there's an age on when you can travel? Like, stop limiting yourself. Stop being fearful. You're not going to die out there. And I think it's hard to rewire a lot of people's minds to think that, like, they've been taught their entire life, like, you're going to die. It's not going to be good. No one's going to speak your language. You're going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes if that does happen, sometimes that's some of the best things. That's one of the best things that can happen to you, just to get lost and have to figure it out yourself. Then you learn about yourself. People are so scared of learning about themselves. It's a scary thing, but you just got to do it, because you will undoubtedly regret it.
Right. Again, if you're granted enough time to to even do that.
Exactly. Right.
I think that's a huge point. And one thing that I share with people is I'd rather die skydiving or on a plane doing something that I wanted to do. I'd rather die on my own sword any day than, have to deal with somebody else's judgments and all the things that I would have or should have or could have done. But I was afraid of being, harmed by the verbal swords or opinions of others. Like, nah, I'm not about that.
Exactly.
And only because you are a writer, you're involved in the arts, you're a philosopher. Has there been maybe, and this has kind of been like your life path, but has there been a book or a resource that you've used to kind of build this sort of fearlessness or resiliency or self-esteem that maybe someone who's not ready to sign up for a trip today, could read until 2019 and pop off sometime in the early spring?
Yeah, I mean, like all on my site, I have things on there that just helps you around the world. Like I don't know any books specifically, but all on Passport Required, we're also a travel blog, and so
Okay,
like
I didn't know that.
yeah. So I interviewed a great friend of mine, Rachel Hill. She runs RachelTravels.com.
Yeah, I've been following
Yeah.
her since I first even considered this. She dope. She's in
Oh yeah, man.
Josie right now.
Yeah. So she came. She came while I was there, but then she moved right when I left. And so, but yeah, she's one of my dopest friends out there doing it. And so I interviewed her. We sat down, had an amazing breakfast, and kicked it in and talked to her about it because she started out um, in corporate America and
Mm-hmm.
just felt herself having like a breakdown. Was going through some things and was like, I can't keep doing this, and just gave it all up one day. I was like, I just need to travel the world, and that's what it became her self care. Like she was doing it before, before this whole thing was a thing.
Yeah.
She was also out there, and so she's very genuine about it and talks openly about it. And she tells people all the time, especially Black women, like, hey, you need to do solo trips. And all the time I hear people say, I don't want to go out there alone. It's dangerous for women. I'm like, listen, I've met more women solo travelers than men. Men always travel in packs. Women, I meet more women out there that are just doing it and like fearlessly and
Yep.
doing it well. And Rachel's one of them. So I say, check out her site. Um,
Yeah,
I
shout out
mean,
to Rachel
it's great.
Travel. She's dope, good people.
Yeah, she's dope.
Okay, yeah. So get some inspiration from others out there doing it rather than there probably isn't even a real book out there about this yet, but they're about to be in a few years. That's for sure.
Exactly. It will be.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Okay, man. Thanks for sharing that and giving us some different perspectives because I never know who's listening to the show. And actually, there are a lot of women who listen to the show, and everyone loves these stories. They're captivating. The way people like
Mm-hmm.
yourself are able to share and present your experience. But Rachel Travels is dope, and I'm glad we could kind of cater to everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about these other projects you got going on, man, because we're probably going to riff on something else from there. So what else? Can we talk about the big news that just happened? Because I think it's super dope.
I, I, which big news are you talking
The
about?
one about the children's
The
show.
Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man, for sure. And it's funny because I was traveling during that, and so I was in where was I actually? I was in South Africa when my friend sent me the application to apply, and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. This is something. Everyone knows Sesame Street. I grew up on Sesame Street.
Yep.
And I'm like, dang, to write for Sesame Street? I don't know. I don't know. Why not? Let's just apply. It can't hurt. They can only say no. So I applied. It was a fellowship, and I was in Europe. I was traveling through Lisbon at the time with my friend Pep, and so they were like, hey, could you do an interview in a couple of days? I'm like, yeah, cool. So I do the interview. It's a horrible interview. The wind was it was a national holiday. Couldn't find reliable Wi-Fi. I found it at a burger spot where the music was way too loud. The wind was blowing crazy. I'm outside. My hat flies off my head. I only heard every other word, and I'm just talking, trying to guess what they're saying. And I hang up, and I'm like, this is the absolute worst interview I've ever done. So for a week, I go from Lisbon to Amsterdam. Let's see, Lisbon to Amsterdam to Dusseldorf to Strasbourg, France, to Switzerland, to Cologne, Germany, to the Black Forest, back to Luxembourg, back up to Rotterdam. And so,
Mm-hmm.
this is all in a week. So I'm in Rotterdam chilling out, and I get the email that's like, "Hey, congratulations, you made it." And I'm like, "Oh, jeez, man." It's like, "Hey, could you? You're gonna start June 4th," and I'm like, "But I don't have time to go back to South Africa." So that was in May. I haven't been home to South Africa since then. So yeah, I came to New York and started this opportunity with Sesame Street Writing Workshop. It was a fellowship with Sesame Street, creating original content um, and diverse, like rich and diverse content.
Yeah.
And so I've just been working on that. It's been an amazing opportunity. I never thought that I would end up creating children's media content, but I got over here and I actually love it. Absolutely. I mean, it's life changing, and realizing that, hey, this is what put me on a path at some point. And if I could inspire and influence kids to do like great things in the world, like that were done for me, then amazing. And so it's been working out. I've been getting great meetings and great opportunities from it. And I look forward to whatever's coming my way because of that.
Yeah, man, that's what's up. And I mean, like you were saying, the ability to empower somebody else, again, share that self-esteem, build that self-esteem. I think that's the number one thing that people lack in general.
That's the truth.
Is especially in the States, is self-esteem. And it's like, any ways you can do that by travel. Now you can do that with your documentaries, your filmmaking, your writing. Now you're influencing kids, and you're also redefining the image of what a Black professional corporate male looks like, bro. You got tats, I got tats, you speak your mind freely. And I think that's a beautiful thing for other Black men who might not be so enthused about being involved in the arts or writing or, that sort of media.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, wait a second. This guy, he talks like me and he's dope. Like, okay.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I got tats all on my neck everywhere, right? And so it's like I go into these spaces and it's like, oh my gosh, your tat! Oh wow, is that Africa on your neck? And it's big, and so it's like it's not. I'm not hiding it under a collar or anything. And so I'm just like, yeah. I get into these spaces, and I'm like, wow, and then it's like, yeah, now let more of us in here, So I get in there and I'm like, there needs to be more of us, and
right.
So I'm reaching back like, hey, I got this door open. Like it's like for me, what I'm realizing this year. Is that it's all about access. So I'm trying to create this. I'm trying to get access to these places and these spaces for me, for everyone that's trying to do the same, because it's important.
100%. And not everybody who's made it that far, if they ever got that far, is willing to reach back. And from your post, you'd be like, hey, I need someone to read this script. I need somebody to record this. Or I need some graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who can I put on with
exactly.
this ship that I'm moving right here? And like, that's community, bro. That's selfless. That's what's up.
Trying.
Okay. So Sesame Street, you out there with Big Bird, Elmo, out there doing the shmoney dance. I see you. All right. So what else you got going on?
Right now, so I'm like I said, I'm in post-production for this new documentary that's pretty heavy. The title was "Set Yourself on Fire."
Okay.
And just in meetings right now that I can't talk too much about. Apparently,
that's okay.
It's one of those.
That's okay.
Yeah, one of those things, but dope stuff. Again,
okay.
On the animation side, and now working on a film with a good friend of mine, Bernard Jones, who was on ABC's the show The Mayor, and Gabby Sidibe and Kia Perry, who's directing. And so we are working on a film about part of James Baldwin's life. I'm a huge fan of James Baldwin.
Right.
Can't even stress enough how important he's been in my life. So we're writing a story loosely based on his life. And so we're hoping to get that done sometime in the next 5 months or so. We're in the pre-production stages of that. And man, just more traveling. I got 2 more trips coming up for the company in 2018. I just emailed out the 2019 list for anyone who wants to sign up on passportrequired.com. And just out here, man, living and loving it in New York, trying to get back to wherever is warm right now.
Right. It might just be a vent on the street for now, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you definitely got this. That's the thing. When I came back to the States, I was like, man, if I can make it in Paris, I don't even speak the language, and I'm an illegal immigrant. I was like, I'll be good in Texas. I speak English. So and that's all they speak. I'll be Gucci.
I'll be good.
At least for the next like 10 years until Spanish really does the full takeover. But
exactly.
We don't have to until Mexico reclaims their territory. But we don't have to get into that now. But dude, I thank you so much for the time. And you know what? All things. So y'all don't know, but Darnell right now is in a Starbucks with the Wi-Fi and access, and he took time out of his day. We've been trying to do this for months. And this definitely isn't the worst interview ever. We can hear you. You're not outside. There's no wind. Your hat's not blowing off. Like,
I appreciate it.
I'm grateful. Now I have more context for this. I'm just like,
I appreciate this, man. Like, it's been cool. I know we've been trying to get it for a while, so I had to make some time for it because I knew.
Man, I really do appreciate it. So one last time, where's everywhere we can find you? Because we got your Instagram handle, which I just learned what it is. It is Clever Bastard. And we're going to plug this after and before, too. I can't wait. It's going to be your picture, Darnell Lamont Walker. I'll probably need 2 slides for this and just be like, Clever Bastard. It's so fitting. I really have a lot of respect for that. So Instagram, what about your websites where people can find all of the stuff you got going on?
Yeah, so you can go to Clever Bastard. For Instagram, you can go
.com?
No. Well, it used to be.
I'm kidding.
No, it used to be. I actually just got rid of that a couple months ago.
What?
I think I still own the domain though, so I might build it back up or something else. But yeah, it used to be cleverbastard.com was my site.
That sounds like a skateboard company.
Oh, it should be. I might try to build it and sell it. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm my film on mental health. If anyone wants to check that out and save some lives, like I promise you, if you share it, you will save lives. We have friends who are struggling that we don't even know are struggling, and so that's at OutsideTheHouseDoc.com. And the other film that's coming out soon is TheRapeMovie.com. Which is pretty straightforward. And
that is the definition of straightforward.
Yep, straightforward. TheRapeMovie.com. Like, which movie? The Rape Movie. Because we're tackling it. We're going hard. Trigger warning. If you're going to go to the site, there's a trigger warning on there because it will trigger some folks undoubtedly. And so yeah, that's where I am. I'm on Facebook, like you said. I have 2 accounts, but I only use one. Until I'm suspended on that one, and then I open the other one up. So, because I get suspended way too often, and which I just learned yesterday that there's a documentary coming out about Filipino workers who make $1 an hour just to scour Facebook and get rid of anyone who violates the terms and policies. And so I found out that that's who's suspending me for all this time, and now I need to watch this documentary so I can see if I come up. And
see what the warning flags are.
If I'm mentioned, right. And so, but yeah, that's where I am.
Okay, and of course, passportrequired.com.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. Dude, thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I could hear you say all these so I didn't miss any. You're doing big things. You're making it look fun. You're living life, and it's heavy work and work that not everybody is suited to do. And we each do our part. But, I'm grateful for brothers like you involved and invested in the sort of work that you're doing. Because I think as a community, as a culture, we're all benefiting from it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man, that's real talk. So, dude, hopefully we can kick it on a trip or something.
Yeah,
but thank you so much. Yeah, and so New Year's, we'll debate about it, but we'll talk. And, man, thank you so much for the time. And we'll wrap soon, all right?
Definitely. Talk to you later.
All right, peace. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of perspective from Darnell Lamont Walker. I hope you guys got a lot out of that session. I certainly did. Make sure you check him out on Instagram at Clever Bastard. And if you want to travel in the same way Darnell does, make sure you check out Passport Required at passportrequired.com. If you're interested in learning more about his films, Seeking Asylum, Set Yourself on Fire, and Outside the House, check out OutsideTheHouseDoc.com and TheRapeMovie.com. You can also follow him pretty easily through other social media channels, so make sure you guys do that. Thanks again, Darnell, for spending the time. So, To piggyback on what I shared earlier before we started today's session, make sure you share an episode, your favorite. And for those of you that don't know, we're on pretty much every podcast platform that's out there. My favorite is Spotify because you can see all the amazing artwork and it just looks really dope. And it's super convenient, whether you're on an iTunes or Apple platform or an Android or Microsoft platform. So Spotify is a great choice. iTunes Store, of course, works. And then if you're on an Android app and don't currently have a favorite podcast app, check out Anchor FM. It's free. It's actually where we create and produce the show. And you might get froggy one day and try to start your own podcast, and that'll be dope as well. So spread the love, spread the word. We appreciate it. This has been another great session at Point Noir. As always, I'm Jerry the Third, signing off. We'll see you next time.